Why do you need to get in the influencer space?
The storytelling piece. It's coming from somebody else. It's not coming from your brand. When you can relate as a consumer to somebody else utilizing a product to make your life easier, to benefit your life, or cost effective, or whatever the product is, you're going to relate more to that. Humans relate to humans.
My name's Nicole Bergen. Thanks for joining Get Nerdy with Bergie, where we talk about all the things that we're seeing in the trenches as a fractional CMO. And I have a special guest today, Scott Wyman. He's our head of strategy at Elevate. And you have been in the trenches with me getting influencer campaigns up and running for a number of clients, specifically in the retail space. So we thought it would be fun, Scott, to talk about what some of those green lights and red flags have been. You ready to hang out with
Yeah,
me for a
this is
few minutes?
exciting. I'm excited. It's Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Like, what a great topic to cover. And uh, what I think's most exciting about this topic, Nicole, is this can impact every single industry. So it's not just one space. It's not just beauty. It can go into legal. Any space, any field, any service or product you're selling can utilize this. So we've had a lot of front row action to some red flags. Ooh, and some green flags though. So let's jump into it.
So just give us a broad overview. For some people's experience with this is very light. Some people have more advanced experience. Let's explain what is influencer marketing.
Yeah, so influencer marketing can be explained 100 different ways, but simple as this. You hire somebody through either giving them your product or giving them money, and then they create content around utilizing your product in a way that fits their everyday life or their style or their niche on however their brand is being built within social media platforms. This can go for all the channels. There's YouTube, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, TikTok. All of them have influencers, and there's 100 million ways to work with them. I think before we really jump into how do you work with them and what you do, is the first question I always get is, how do you find these people?
How
Right?
do you find them?
There's 100 tools out there, right? So the tools that I like to use, I like to honestly just go directly into Instagram. And then, as my kids would say, I search it up. I search up what product. So if I'm doing a mattress, or if I'm in the legal space and I'm looking for somebody that's answering questions on the street, I'm just going to type that. And then within the platforms, at the very top, it says suggested for you. And then that's a rabbit hole. You can just start going down the rabbit hole. And I pull up an Excel document and I just start typing in handles and linking them to it. And then there's also professional tools that you match up with. Tools like Modash is a really good one that's used.
Modash, Modash.
Like Modash. I think
Okay.
their URL is modash.io. Not
Okay.
sponsored by any way, but it's extremely simple. And I know Brandwatch has another one that's a little bit more intricate, but all of them have CRMs built into it because it really does turn into a sales process.
What do you mean by that?
So you can imagine, right? You're an influencer, you got 40,000 followers, 50,000, depending on what tier, or 500,000, or in the million space. Think about all of these companies who are trying to reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's becoming more and more saturated. So how do you, just like sales, how do you break through the noise? How do you stand out so that brand wants to work with, insert your product there? How do you make sure that they're choosing you over the other 10 people that are in their inbox? So it comes down to sequencing. I know we talk about sequencing in other spaces.
It's an important form of communication. So what you're saying in a nutshell is that these influencers at times can be divas, and
Yes.
there is a delicate process of engaging with them to do a collab, as they say.
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
really quick. For those of you that are joining us, we're talking about influencer marketing. And right now we're just kind of scratching the surface on what is influencer marketing and the benefits of it. But can you really quickly explain the difference between influencer and UGC? I think
Yeah.
some people confused by that.
So simple. I mean, there's still a gray area here, but how I'm understanding and explaining to clients is UGC is content that you own. You give them a product or you give them a dollar amount, they go create content and give it to you. You can utilize it however you want. And if you want to tag them, you can. If you don't want to tag them, you don't have to. Influencer on this other side, there's a lot more rules and guidelines around it where it's going through, you're utilizing their platforms to showcase your product. So it can be on Nicole Bergen is an influencer. She's working with my company, and my company sells mattresses, let's say. You're going and highlighting mattresses on your platform and just tagging me or mentioning me in the comments, however we agree upon, so that I'm getting exposure to your network. And that's why it's important you figure out who these influencers are and why you should work with them. But we'll get into that.
Okay, so to be clear, influencer helps us marketers reach a broader audience, right? Because we're tapping into the audience of the influencer. So, and obviously one of the most famous influencers we all know, a celebrity influencer like a Kim Kardashian, millions and millions of followers, right? There's also micro influencers or hyper local influencers, which frankly, our research at Elevate has pointed to having more credibility with consumers in specific verticals where it makes sense. You mentioned mattress, like a wellness influencer that is talking about sleep and wellness that's hyper local to that area is going to make sense for that mattress brand. It might actually yield more results, engagement, referrals, etc., than a Kim Kardashian. So don't assume, ladies and gentlemen, that just because, oh, I got to get into the influencer space, I got to go find a celebrity. You can be successful with influencer marketing at the hyper local level with some of these micros, 15,000 followers, 20,000 followers, not a million. So you
Right.
can get in the game.
I think that's the most important step in the whole influencer process is identifying your ICP. So
Let's
who
talk
is
about
your
that.
ideal consumer? And
Right.
make sure before you start any outreach, anything first you do. Of course, we're a research company, so we're going to go to this. But if you're not a research company or you don't have the funds to hire a research company, there's many of ways to analyze your internal database. You can even talk to your teams. You can try to run a survey through your internal database. Plenty of platforms out there, but truly understand who your customer is. It's going to help a lot with who the start of the outreach and who you want to go after for those influencers.
So would you say that maybe is the first red flag is making sure that you have that defined? If you don't have your ICP, your ideal customer persona defined that you want to engage with, that's going to be your first problem that
Yeah,
you
the
want to
first
be.
red flag, you have a company reaches out to you, hey, we do influencer marketing, let's jump into it. Here's 10 people. Or somebody reaches out to you and they're an influencer and you're like, oh, wow, we can do an influencer collaboration, but you have no strategy, don't fit your target audience, and leads into the second red flag is low engagement rates on profiles. They show 500,000 followers, but when you really scroll down their profile or you look at a tool like Modash and you realize they have fake followers, red flag.
Mm.
Their
So
followers
wait,
aren't.
so how do you sniff that out? So
That's
you said you're looking at an influencer and you're like, okay, great. They have 100,000 followers. But one of the questions one of our CEOs asked us, and I thought this is a valid question, is, well, how many of those people are specifically in my backyard?
yeah. So
That's kind
that's
of
where
hard.
the tool like Modash will come into play.
Okay.
They will tell you, you can pull up their profile and it gives you the breakdown of fake followers, which they all have it. There's just a certain percent you want them to stay under, and
Okay.
then where they're located. And then when you go to if you don't have that tool, when you go to their Instagram profile, just scroll down a little bit and just click yourself and look at the comments, read them. How many
Like,
likes,
are they getting,
comments?
how many comments and likes are they getting on their posts? That's a more realistic view of what kind of reach you might get collaborating with that influencer.
Absolutely. The
Okay.
ones
So
at
to
the top,
summarize,
remember, are pinned, right? So those ones are
right.
their best.
Of course. Of course. Scroll past the pin, ladies and
Scroll past
gentlemen.
the pin. Yes, exactly. And then
Take a
you'll
look at
find the truth.
the truth. All right. Low engagement rate. Do you know, is there an industry engagement rate that you should be shooting for with
No,
influencer marketing?
1 to 2% is the minimum.
Okay.
So in
Of
that
their
Modash
follower
tool,
count.
it
Can you
will
explain
literally
that
tell
for
you.
everybody that's watching? What does that mean?
Yeah. So if they have, I'm not great at math on the fly, but if they have 100,000 followers, right, 1 to 2% of those 100,000 followers, there should be a like or a comment on their post. 1%, there should be around 1,000 on each post, right?
Okay.
If it's lower than that, oftentimes what you'll see is they're fake followers, or kind of going down a rabbit hole a little bit here, but I've worked with a client before that have hired the wrong person. So they were in the fitness space, right? And all of a sudden they switched their Instagram from fitness more into the cooking space, but they grew all of their followers in fitness. So
Hmm.
now that they're working in the cooking space, that's not what their base of what they built is actually interested in.
Mm.
Got to
Okay.
be really careful with.
Okay. So red flags. Number one, low engagement rates. Scroll past the pin, ladies and gentlemen, and look at, are they engaging with at least 1 to 2% of their follower count on a regular basis? All right. Number two,
Number
overly
two,
polished or inauthentic content. What is that?
everything looks the same. That's
Hmm.
not how my house looks. I have 2 kids. My house is not doesn't have blankets folded perfectly laying across the
So
back.
is
It
this
has
our this
Legos
I
everywhere, right?
you saw what happened with the Kardashians, right? So the Febreze campaign. Did you see this? Sorry, I don't watch the Kardashians. I forget her name. She had a picture on her Instagram of all of her sitting on her bed with like all these Febreze cleaning supplies, and she got annihilated in the comments because people are like, "You're not using Febreze. You're full of you know what," right? So that's an example of
Yeah.
inauthentic, right? Does it align with the person? Is it
There's
realistic that they would be promoting this product or service? Or in some cases, I was looking at scrolling this weekend and one of our clients' competitors, and I saw that they had this like actor doing their, come into the store, and it was so like, it just felt not real. And I'm like, this is a hired person. This person clearly doesn't work for this company. The way they're using the words and the way they're moving, it feels so stiff and cringy, as they say.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get into that like celebrity space when we talk about Kardashians, and we're starting to really like, and the research can point oftentimes to working with celebrities can be detrimental to a brand for how much they cost. So to your point earlier, that micro influencer who, it's Nicole with her kids schlucking out the door with lunch pail and her hair is disheveled, and she's more relatable because let's face it, that's life. I was
Yeah.
just with my
Yeah.
kids this morning. I definitely wasn't laying on my bed with Febreze. I was probably yelling at my daughter to get her hair brushed.
And so you're promoting the wet brush available at
Absolutely.
Target.
Absolutely. I think that's
There you
another red flag is too much promotion.
go.
So if their feed is filled with promotion, 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 what that does is it doesn't allow the audience to truly connect with the influencer and relate with the influencer. And in today's space, nobody wants to be sold over and over and over again on your social feed as you're scrolling, right? That balance of mom life or that balance of sports life or whatever the category is, or DIY life versus product pitch is really important to look at.
So promo overload, let's summarize it as promo overload. You see that as a red flag when it comes to influencer marketing.
Absolutely. And then the fourth
But
one
I'm
is really
trying to
kind
sell products, Scott. How does that
I
work?
they will come if you create the authentic, content on your platform. The sailing with the guy who's sailing from Oregon to Hawaii right now,
Well, yeah.
I posted about on my LinkedIn. If you go
Uh,
check out his Instagram, from Oregon to Hawaii, he grew over 1 million followers. And some of his videos, like he was sailing, the camera would flip over, and then he would like just go to the camera and it'd be upside down, and he would keep filming his video, and it was just him. And people loved it. Southwest Airlines was in his comments. Like Elf dropped a package to him. Like it's insane. If you haven't heard of it, go check it out.
right. So I think it's important, just a sidebar on this promo overload thing, is when you think about social, think of it as your space to educate and connect the dots for people. It's not offer driven messaging like you use at the top of the funnel, maybe, in your radio spots or your TV or direct mail. You're selling a specific offer, a specific deal to get a sense of urgency, maybe even in the Google space, right? You're chasing that bottom of the funnel consumer. But influencer marketing and UGC content, it's a bridge, right? It bridges those two things of awareness of the opportunity, and then do I need this? And help me understand the complexities of it, or what are the things I haven't thought of? Like,
If
think
you're
of
like
it.
if you're a beauty company and a lot of product sales come from online, there is a space for what they call affiliate influencer marketing here. And that's where, we've all seen it. Use my code now for
Mhm.
25% off. But that doesn't feel as much of a sale, especially if the content they're producing is natural and not
Like they're
always
putting the
sell.
lashes on, and then they're like, "Oh, if you want to try them,
Right.
here's the code."
Because
Yeah,
in the comments, people are like, "Oh, girl, where did you get that makeup? Your eyelashes look great. Oh, I love that blouse." And all of a sudden they're dropping the links, right? It's more of a
yeah,
natural promotion.
yeah. That makes sense. All right, what other red flags? We've covered a couple: low engagement rate, overly polished, inauthentic content, promo overload. Those are the
Great.
first three we covered.
And then the fourth one was we kind of talked at the top was that research. Do your research first.
Knowing your ICP,
Yes.
making sure.
Yes.
So an example of that would be, chasing a demographic maybe that isn't already in alignment with your product or service.
Absolutely. You're going for young Gen Z, but your target audience is actually older millennials, right? And it's maybe you're going after men and it's female, or you're showing more lifestyle shots and they're more about um hands-on, I don't know, like how to's, or right, really making sure that the people reflected that you're going after match who is walking in your store, shopping online, falling in love with your brand, making sure those match. It makes it easier to connect the dots. Not saying you
I feel.
can't go outside of who your ICP is to connect the dots in a fun way, and we like to call it stopping the squirrel. But
Mhm.
if you're just starting, take it slow, make sure you're aligning your brand with the influencers.
So I think this is where a creative brief is really helpful. Is
Absolutely.
to, even if it's just for internal purposes, or if you're hiring an outside agency, get alignment in your organization on a brief. And what is a brief? A brief is very simple. At the top, it's the name of the company, what your mission is in a paragraph, right? Who is the ICP that you're going after with this effort? And then what are you hoping to achieve? What are you hoping to educate? Like, what do you want in the content? And, you know, in some cases, I want 50% of the content to be using the product and 50% of it, interacting with my e-commerce site, the process of buying it, or, whatever. Lay out the foundation of what you're hoping to get out of it so that your influencers or whoever your collaborators are that you're working with at UGC or whatever it might be, that they have a clear understanding of what your value props are, who you're trying to reach, and what kind of content you want to see. That being said, you also have to be careful not to be so strict in your creative brief when you're reaching out to an influencer that you're not giving them the creative freedom to do what they do best, which is create content that sticks with the audience, right?
Yeah, if we have more time on another LinkedIn Live, I think we should really go through kicking off an influencer strategy and really outlining those details. We've talked a little bit on where you find them, but what are the goals? Where are your budgets? What channels? How do you do all that? What's the checklist you kind of go down? But I'd love to join another one and talk about that.
We'll do another one on that because that's a whole 20 minutes right there. But in our remaining few minutes, if you're joining us live on LinkedIn, thanks for coming. We're talking about influencer marketing, UGC collabs, and some red flags and green lights. If you have a question, hit us up in the chat. We've got about 5 more minutes together. I want to switch gears from red flags to green lights. Scott, where would you start on that? What would you put on that list as
Take
number
those
one?
red flags and flip them around, right? Low engagement, consistent engagement, right? People who are truly going into the comments and saying, I need to go get that. And the person is replying. On a micro level, that's going to definitely be a lot more, in store traffic, focusing around your stores. On a macro level, that's going to really, a lot of comments. So consistent engagement and making sure that that's aligning with your brand as well. So that
Okay.
would be my first one to start
Number
with.
one. All right.
You know, we talk about doing the research, making sure that those ones you're going after, your audience matches what your ICP is. So
You mean
if
the audience of the influencer?
the audience of the influencer matches your current customer. So if you're
So,
going after 35-year-old moms, that influencers following is representative of 35-plus-year-old moms. Match those two up. You're going to have
and
a
it's
hard
not just an age, right? It's a life situation too.
totally.
Think bigger, right? Like wellness or, fitness or foodie. Like, do you have a product that's adjacent to food and it makes sense to align with that industry or,
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
beyond just age?
Is your brand more playful? Can you bring more comedy into it? If your brand's a little more serious, you're going to need more educational pieces into it. So absolutely, it starts.
Okay. Couple more. Well, we have time for maybe one or two more. What other green lights?
This one you're going to love because you're the queen of storytelling, but real storytelling, making sure it's not, like we said in the last one, in the red flags, over polished, overproduced. Tell the story. Tell the
Can you give an
story of the,
example?
yes.
Well, you talked about the guy on the boat, but give me an example.
Yeah, well, the guy in the boat is unique in a different way. But if you are selling yoga mats, right? What is so unique about that yoga mat? How does it fit into your daily life to make your life better? What's the problem, right? So maybe you've had this influencer's had a yoga mat in the past, and it's shed a lot, or it's not comfortable when they're doing their routine. How has this yoga mat changed it? And I want to see that product being used in that person's daily life. Throwing it over the shoulder, it's stored in the back of the car, she's pulling it out, she's walking into the place, practicing on it, right?
I'm not slipping and sliding on it. You see me like, my old mat and then in my new mat, I'm like, my warrior is legit.
In your creative brief too, you're going to tell them, here's the 3 things that this mat I want you to lean into. It's slip resistant, it's sweat resistant, and it's lightweight. Making sure the influencer is leaning into that. And again, remove the creative handcuffs, because that's how the true storytelling comes in.
Why do you think, just to finish up our conversation today, people are stopping by, they're watching this, or they're curious? Why do you need to get in the influencer space?
Because
How does a brand know?
the storytelling piece, it's coming from somebody else. It's not coming from your brand. Think about when you market as a brand. Of course, you are the best, right? You wouldn't have opened the store, or you wouldn't have sold the product if you don't think it's the best. So you're going to highlight your features. And there's still a space for that. I'm not saying that's not the right thing to do. You absolutely need to market yourself. But when you can relate as a consumer to somebody else utilizing a product to make your life easier, to benefit your life, or cost effective, or whatever the product is, you're going to relate more to that. Humans relate to humans.
Does it have to go viral to be successful?
Of course. No, absolutely not. It doesn't have to go viral. That's part of the beginning process. What are your goals? What do you want to see from it? How many impressions? If you're looking at sales, what is your cost per sale? All of those things are important to do at the top. Viral, of course, it's nice to go viral. It does help, but it's really hard.
You can be really successful without viral.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
hyper local on the cheap. I mean, we've had influencers we worked with $5,000 and they put together some really compelling content, and you can replace impressions from another channel, put it into, take a UGC piece of content, run paid meta ads against it, improve the visibility, and have it be really compelling because it's authentic, to your point earlier. Scott has gotten me on board with this over the last few years. He's been in my ear, and he's right. If you're not considering UGC content and influencer marketing, you really should, especially if you're spending money at the top of the funnel and bottom. This is a great bridge. So thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, Scott, for having this conversation. I'm going to take you up on your offer. We'll do another one of these down the road where we walk you through setting up an influencer campaign. But until next time, hope you guys have a great week and you're enjoying the first day back from the holiday. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye, everybody.